When did you go on a vision quest?
Oh, it was 20 years ago. Went up in the mountains, camped out with one thing in mind, finding my power animal. And of course I've been fasting and, putting my mind in the right mode and everything. And it wasn't the groundhog, and it wasn't the squirrel, and it wasn't the chipmunk, and it wasn't the eagle, and it wasn't the coyote. It wasn't the wolf. It wasn't the fish. It's a tiny white butterfly. Too much, really. Yeah. It's kind of interesting because I moved out of the other studio now. I guess it's about 6-7 weeks since I've been out of that place, and it was a good studio for 5.5 years. But right around that time, I had 2 paintings stolen. It was verified they were stolen just a few weeks ago. For the fact, so I mean, in the last year, I've had 3 more paintings stolen, and that makes it kind of rough because you work on something, and then it must be a sign of weakness to be an artist because the predators are thick and heavy. And I think, and then I get an idea comes across me. It's like a passion, ecstasy, energy. I go, oh. And I've been painting long enough so that when I paint, they are beautiful. And I think, I feel one right there, ready to come in. And it gets closer to me, and I feel the energy, and I know it's just absolutely divine. Then I look into the future, and I see these people that go crazy. If they see that piece. I see Ron Berger, who I did Lady Godiva, and hung it over to his place, and he said, "I'll see if I can get you a buyer." I said, "All right." He says, "I'll do the best I can." I said, "Well, good." Next time I saw him, I says, "Where's the painting?" He says, "Well, I traded it." I says, "What did you get?" He said, "That rock right there." And I looked at it. It was a rock about this big. I looked at it. He says, "That's a real valuable rock." It wasn't. I says, "What do I have to do to make it valuable?" He says, "Well, you got to get it cut and shaped up and turned into something, that type of thing. But it's a valuable rock." It was a piece of junk, and he was lying to me, and he was a cutthroat thief. And all of that work I put into that painting. About 6 months later, I met this guy, and he said, "I have one of your paintings." I said, "Oh, which one?" He said, "Lady Godiva." I said, "Oh, you do?" He said, "Yes." I said, "Well, what did you give for it?" I said, "Who did you get it from?" He says, "Ron Berger." I said, "What did you give him?" He said, "A free and clear piece of real estate." I said, "You did?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Oh, God, I love that painting. Maybe one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen in my life. I just had to have it." He said, "It hurt getting rid of that piece of real estate, but the painting was so beautiful, that was just one example. I painted Lady Godiva 6 times. I've never been paid for it, ever. Constantly, continuously, the guys come in, they look at the horse, they look at the girl, they look at the technique, they look at the beautiful magic environment she's in, and they go nuts. One time I was painting a Lady Godiva, because I painted it 6 times, I guess I can share some of the viewpoints. And I was staying with this lady, and seemed to be a pretty nice lady. And I was working on the painting. I believe it was about a 5-foot piece and about 3.5 feet wide. And I was working on it in her living room, and she'd been watching me. And the pressure had been building up in her. and it was getting more and more intense. And she went out of control. I went over to the store and bought 2 bags of groceries for all of her sons and daughters and stuff. And she met me at the door and wouldn't let me in. She had some pepper spray in her hand. And to get me out so that she could keep the paintings, she sprayed me in the face with pepper spray.
What?
She was trying to slam the door after she sprayed me in the face. I just set the groceries down on the ground. Of course, when I saw her spraying it in my face, I immediately closed my eyes and quit breathing. Pushed the door open. I walked in and then grabbed the painting and walked out the door and slammed the door after me. She had been driven insane by the piece. Now, I'm not saying I'm that great of an artist. However, over and over and over is this nightmarish thing that goes on. Now I'm thinking, well, it's just some people are that way. My girlfriend of 15 years had to make that choice. She made it. She took the art and ran. Haven't seen her since. My friends I went to school with, my one good buddy, you know, for 25 years, 30 years, whenever I was in town, I'd crash on his couch, and I was always generous with him. One day I gave him one of these big paintings he had a place over in an antique mall, and I said, Dan, his name's Dan Nelson. I said, Dan, I'm going to let you borrow this painting. If you sell it, we'll split whatever you get. He said, oh, that's great. Well, 2008 rolled around, and I went over there to take a photo of the painting so I could put it in my book, Fire Goddess. He was so paranoid about losing that painting, he wouldn't even let me in his house to even take a picture of it. Of course, that was 11 years ago. I haven't spoken to him since. Lifetime friend, no longer a friend. Not anymore. He went crazy. He went psychotic. Now he can sit and he can look at that painting all the time, and I mean he's going to look at the golden egg, but the goose is gone. And I was generous with him before. I'd given him several paintings. I actually gave him all the paintings except for one that I painted when I was in Jamaica for several months. I just gave them to him as a gift, just because I liked him. But all of a sudden, something in his head twisted. So there's something that I put in these paintings that turns people into criminals. Friends, family members, lovers, you name it, something happens. And here's another guy, Adele Scapizzi. We stuck some paintings over at his place, and these were, I was moving out of one location. We put them over to his place. He had a big warehouse. It's the last I saw any of the paintings. Adele Scapizzi. He lives in a condo up in Park City. And the paintings drove him crazy. He wouldn't let me pick them up. He wouldn't let me see them. He said if I tried to get in and pick him up, he was going to call the cops. I said, Adele. He's Italian. I said, what's the matter with you? And 2 of the paintings had already been paid for, and I was touching them up for other people. So not only did he steal my artwork, but he also stole the paintings from these other 2 people, one of which is now deceased, and the painting was meant to go to her son. On and on and on and on and on. I mean, what kind of an interview is when all you talk about is why you wonder if you should be painting or not. Because whenever you do, it's problems, problems, problems. We wear our experiences like clothing of our life. And we wake up in the morning with the clothing on that we have, that we've been wearing that life. Now, of course, I've got my arms in the honey pit, and I'm completely covered with sweetness. All I got to do is lick my painterly fingers, and I've got a peanut butter and honey sandwich all over me. So, that beauty is there, but then there's that other flavor that comes along with it, where they've gone crazy. And they have turned into criminals because of something that I've done. Now, if I don't do anything, people are still predators. Everybody wants to have a slave, or everybody wants to have a gullible person around that they can hoodwink and pull the wool over their eyes. But these stories go on and on and on and on. I wake up in the morning, sometimes I'll have 6 people there by the side of my bed. Reminds me of nightmarish things that they've done to me. It may be Mark Papendick, the pastor of the Seventh-day Adventist Church in Glendale, California, or his son, Michael Weston, who stole my 3,500 big giant posters, Angel of Peace posters, worth quite a bit each one of them signed. They stole every one of them. They stole paintings that hadn't even been signed yet, and they forged my name and shipped them off and sold them to wherever they could get any money. Just Mark Papendick and Michael Weston. None of these people that I mentioned have art that has a clear title to it. It's all cloudy title stuff. And the cops won't do anything. File police reports. They say, oh, well, it sounds civil. You get an attorney. I got an attorney. I gave him $5,000. I said, go for that art. I want to get my art back. They've got no bill of sale. They got no right to even have it. Call up the attorney a month later. He says, well, how's the case going? He said, I decided not to take it. I said, what about my $5,000? He said, well, I used that up deciding I didn't want to take it by researching the case. I said, oh, really? Oh. Then there was the largest fraud case ever happened in Idaho. 2008. Real estate market had dived, and this guy was still taking money in from investors. It's a very famous case. You can look it up on the internet. He was still taking in money from investors, and he had many other businesses that were successful. And so the state went after him because he was accepting money and not telling people that the company was losing money. It was the biggest fraud in Idaho history. When the smoke settled, none of the investors got any money back, but the attorneys that were court appointed got $50 million from his stuff. So when we talk about attorneys, we're talking about guys that are worse than, no mother wants her son to marry a plumber. Or her daughter to marry a plumber, rather. He's touching all that sewage, and then he's going to touch her daughter. No, I don't think so. Like, I'm from a plumber family, and they have more integrity, more honesty, and produce a better result than any attorney I've ever heard of. I only been married once, and I got one divorce. I said, I don't have any money. Larry Long was his name. Larry Long. I said, I don't have any money. He said, well, let me just come over to your place and go through it. He went through and he picked out all of his favorite things that I had in my possession. He took them all home, filed the papers, never bothered showing up to court or doing anything else. When the judge finally made a judgment, Larry Long wasn't there. Where was Larry Long? Well, he didn't have to do much except he was a glorified paper clerk. He filed the papers, took all my belongings, and vamoosed. And this goes on and on and on and on and on. Where are we? I think we're in a place that is based on some type of insanity and ugly deceit. Well, who would make a thing like this? Who is it? Who is it? Who would set up a deal that you would age, your teeth would fall out, your hair would fall out, you know, you'd get pain, you'd have your body mess up, get ran over by a car, you get bitten by bugs, you get robbed, you get beat up. Who would put something together like this? Must not be a very friendly guy, but they say there is self-determinism. They say that there is self-initiative. You mean there's self-determinism and self-initiative that will take you away from this? I'm afraid not. What do we have? We have a one-way street, don't we? Yes. You got born here, you'll die here. You have any choice in the matter? No, not at all. Well, how about suicide? Well, that's not a choice at all. So, who is it? Who is he? Who is this guy that put this trap together that seems to be horribly unfair? And people that follow this guy seem to all be predators. Now, what is it that this guy who put this trap together could be getting out of it? Well, he's watching me to see what I do under the circumstance, being ripped off, beat up, knocked down, stolen from, perpetually. It's Sisyphus. You know, you push that stone up the hill and it rolls right back down to the bottom. You go, duh. You push that stone right back up the hill and it rolls right back down to the bottom. You go, duh. Let's have a dumb contest. I think I'll roll that stone right up to the top of the hill. I know what's going to happen. It's going to roll right back down again. Oh, there's a dumb contest going on, and I think I'm going to win this time. There goes that rock right at the top. Oh, there goes, boom. So what do? Well, you say, well, I got to figure this one out. I will plant more grain than the rats can eat. Let the rats and the mice and the terrible things that kill crops do their best. I've got so much growing that I'll still have a giant harvest. And you do it, and by golly, here comes a giant swarm of locusts. Big, huge grasshoppers. And lions stealing rats. These are big rats. They're showing up now because you got a big harvest. And what is it? Well, the government says, we're going to have to tax your crop. Oh, whoops. And you can't sell anything unless you give us 10%, 20%, 30%. If you, God knows you make a profit. You make a profit, you're going to give us 30% of that profit.